this is going to be the birth story or labor and delivery story journey thing, majig, whatever you want to call it. I originally didn't want to do one of these just because, I mean, there's so many out there, and also I don't want to, like, I don't know, like, people always make labor seem like such a horrible thing, kind of, and it, like, I feel like it's scarier than it needs to be. But for me personally and emotionally, I think that I need to talk about this. And Michael is here, and so is Everett.
For now.
We'll
see how this goes.
For
emotional... If we just disappear randomly.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
He got fussy, is what happened. But yeah, they're here for, like, emotional support, and also I think that I forgot some stuff. I know that I forgot some stuff, so that's kind of why Michael's here. Plus, I might end up crying because, honestly, nothing turned out the way that I thought it would, and it was a really emotional, almost traumatic, I would say traumatic, actually, some of it, and that's not to scare anybody. I think a lot of the reasons why I'm so emotional and traumatic, like, feeling of trauma about it, is because, like, it was my own fault for making it so, for having my head so made up, you know, having my mind so made up of what I wanted beforehand and not being flexible enough. So I guess I'll just start before he was born. So he was late, quite a bit late. I mean, not like super, super late. He was a week and 3 days late.
3 days, yeah. We went to the hospital a week and 2 days late, and he was born a week and 3 days late.
Yeah, so I was getting really tired of being pregnant, honestly, and it was the kind of the anticipation of, like, wanting to know when things were gonna happen was just kind of like eating me alive a little bit, and I wasn't sleeping well, and a whole host of other things. Plus, being that pregnant is just, it's a lot. It's a lot. So I went to do, like, a non-stress test, and everything was fine with him and with me and everything, but they were like, you know, you seem really uncomfortable, and he's really late.
Well, you were having false labor.
Oh my god!
Every day,
oh my god! I forgot
day.
about that. Yeah, I was, like, 3 days in a row. It was like contractions that would, like, every 5 minutes and then disappear, and then every 10 minutes and then disappear, and some of them.
It was about every 10 minutes for a few days.
Yeah.
It would just sometimes creep up to about 4 or 5 minutes for about an hour and a half, and then they kind of go back to about 10 minutes.
And some of them were, like, really painful, and some of them were, like, hardly hiccups at all. So, I don't know, it was really confusing, like, am I in labor, am I not in labor? It was really weird. So they were like, why don't you go in to get induced, sort of. I didn't, like, oh, he's not happy, is he? I think that we're going to set him up on his play gym real fast, and then we'll continue the story in a second. So we just set him up on his little play gym, so if you hear that, that's him playing. So I apologize. Hopefully that doesn't, like, diminish the seriousness of this video. Anyways, where was I?
You decided to go into the hospital for misoprostol.
Yeah, that's like the little cervix ripener thing, majig, which was, I didn't really feel any different for, like, the first
2 sets
12 hours.
Yeah,
for 12 hours, because I think you get one every 4 hours. So that's, like, they put it up, right up next to your cervix to try and open your cervix.
Orally.
That's right. See, this is why he's here, because I can't remember. There's the two different ones that you put up next to your cervix, and then you can take one orally. And then she was talking about the other one. Anyways, that's why he's here. Legit, I can't remember a damn thing. So I took 2. You're supposed to, like, take one every 4 hours and, like, see how it progresses. So for the first 12 hours, I didn't really feel any different. My contractions were the same, not really painful yet. They were just the same. It wasn't really changing anything. And then all of a sudden they were like, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll just, like, it was like 7 p.m. at this point. And
it was 12 hours since we had went in. Mm-hmm. So we went in at 7 a.m., and then we had taken a few pills, and then it was 7 p.m.
Yeah. And we were watching Mockingjay Part 2, and we were eating dinner, and then, like, they were like, okay, we're gonna give you probably a sleeping pill, let you rest through the night, and then you can be fresh in the morning for probably, wow, did you hear that? He probably just totally blew out in his diaper. they were like, yeah, we're gonna have you be fresh in the morning because it'll probably be go time in the morning. So we're just eating dinner, winding down for the day, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I think my water just broke. It was just a very strange, warm gush. And then Michael's like, oh, I better go get the nurse. So the nurse comes in, and she's like, no way, really? And so she lifts up the sheet, and like right when she lifts up the sheet, another huge gush, like almost splashed her in the face kind of thing. And so that was really hilarious.
We should have a warning at the beginning of this video. Don't it?
It's going to be kind of graphic.
I'll watch it while eating or something.
It's not disgusting.
No, it's not disgusting.
It's just labor.
It might be for some people.
Labor is graphic, so if you should know that. If you see the title of this video, you should know.
Touche.
But anyway, so after that point, things started progressing pretty quickly. Contractions started hurting a lot more, and I was dilating at a pretty regular pace. They gave me a sleeping pill anyways because it wasn't so painful that I was supposedly not, I should still rest. And
Ambien.
They gave me Ambien. I will never, ever, ever take Ambien again for the rest of my life. That shit was scary.
Not to scare people away from taking it necessarily. It's just if you can't manage to sleep, you can have really bad hallucinations. Hannah was contracting through it. So about every 15, 20 minutes, she was waking up with horrible hallucinations.
All the nurses turned into lizards and were like scurrying up the wall and stuff. And like, that's the one that's most vivid in my mind, but I had some really weird hallucinations.
And these aren't intense dreams. These are like, she's awake while these are happening types of hallucinations. So. And
luckily I wasn't so deep in it that I couldn't tell that it wasn't real.
Yeah, she'd come out of it pretty quickly. Some people like sleepwalk and do some really weird stuff, buy things online and stuff.
I should have online shopped. That would have made it better. But yeah, no, I knew that that it wasn't real, but I was like watching lizards all over the walls, and I'm like, that's weird. It's not real, but it was bizarre. And I was telling Michael all about it. He slept okay the first night.
I think he slept for about an hour and a half, and I got a little over 2.5 hours that first night.
But yeah. And I was like in and out of the bathtub and stuff, trying to like relax and like help with the contractions. They weren't, I can't remember exactly what point, maybe like 5 or 6 centimeters is when like it really, really, really started.
Yeah, that was right about where your water broke. It was a little bit after your water broke that the first few after your water broke were really hard, and then they seem to have kind of lightened up pretty much until about 8-9 centimeters, about almost 12 hours later.
Yeah. Maybe we should pause again for a second and talk about what I wanted my labor and delivery to look like. I was planning to go as natural as possible. So no drugs. I mean, it was kind of hard for me to make the decision to even do the cervix ripener because I really did want labor to happen naturally.
That's the type of thing they do use that in like home births and stuff too. So
anyways, like I was saying, I was planning on going totally natural. I was a little weirded out about the cervix ripener, but I kind of, after talking to Michael and doing some research, we were like, that's probably the best decision for us. And I really don't think that it affected anything that much. I honestly my water may have broken at the exact same time, whether they gave me that or not.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. I don't really know if it really changed anything because before I went into the hospital, I was already almost 3 centimeters, so you never know. Although that doesn't necessarily mean anything either. You just never know. You never know. So I didn't want to do Pitocin because I thought that would make me want an epidural more because they can make contractions a lot more intense, a lot more painful. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to avoid an epidural if I could. Especially, I wasn't leaving any option off the table by any means, but I wanted to try. I really wanted to try. So in the back of my head, I'm like, I have all these options, but I'm really trying to not use them. Is kind of how mentally I was going into it. Mainly because epidurals, like the process, like it makes me kind of queasy. It's just a needle in your back is not, it's not so fun. And we'll get to that later on, but I wanted it to be a natural vaginal birth, and that's just unfortunately it wasn't in the cards for me. And that's hard for me to accept.
We'll get there.
We will. And also, I should probably mention that I was seeing doctors and midwives throughout my pregnancy, and I wanted the midwives, like the practice that we go to is like several doctors and several midwives, and it's kind of like whoever is on call is who end up delivering your baby. And so I saw like all the midwives, and you kind of try and get comfortable with all of them, and I seen several of the doctors also. And is there anything about the birth plan that we're forgetting?
No, I think that's pretty good. Originally, we had intended they have a birthing center there, which is really similar to like a home birth type atmosphere. And given a few different reasons, we weren't able to do that.
I was so close. Honestly, it was so stupid. They have like a very strict set of like guidelines, like if you do not meet these, then you cannot give birth in our birth center, and I was half a point away on BMI from being able to deliver there, and so that was like that made me upset. Although knowing how things happened, I wouldn't have been able to deliver in the birth center anyways. They would have transferred me anyways, so live and learn, I guess. Let it roll off your back. So anyways, at this point, I was pretty much just trying to breathe through the labor pains, and Michael was there, and my mom and my sister, they were there at the beginning, and then since things weren't progressing, I sent them home, and then they came back early in the morning, after that whole crazy Ambien issue. They came back.
7 or 8 the next morning, I think they came back.
And I'm so glad that they did. I am so thrilled for all the support that I had. Michael was an amazing coach, and my mom and my sister both gave birth naturally. My mom has 6 babies, my sister has 2, and so I kind of felt like, with their support, I knew I could do it. He's just over there playing, being all cute. So yeah, I had a really, really amazing support. My mom and my sister came back, and at this point in my memory, it kind of just all gets kind of shoved together into a big mess of pain, and I don't know, I can't really describe it. I was in the zone, and so time didn't really make sense. I was just breathing through contractions. Are you okay, buddy? Michael's gonna change his diaper really quick. So, yeah, the only way I can really describe it is like I was in the zone, and that, I don't know if that'll make sense. To some people it might. My mom and my sister, who, like I said, they went through natural labor also, and they were kind of like, no, I get it. You just reach this point of like, all you can do mentally and physically is just be in the moment and deal with that one contraction at a time. So I was like, yeah, like I said, I was just trying to breathe through the contractions, just trying to get there. And it was every time they would check my cervix, it surprised me how much farther I was progressing. And every time I looked at the clock, I was like, holy crap, it's been 2 hours. It didn't feel like 2 hours, it felt like 5 minutes, So for that part, I was very, very pleased. I thought that labor would drag on and on and on, but I was just mentally in this place where time didn't exist, and I don't know. My mom, I don't even remember exactly what she said. She was like, you're some kind of like birthing machine or something. I was just like, I did a lot of like swaying and moving. I was walking around. I was bouncing on the birth ball. I was in the tub. I was out of the tub. I was trying to manage my pain that way. And I can safely say that the most effective thing for me definitely was movement. So if you, my advice to you would be, especially, I don't know if all hospitals are like that, but my hospital and the midwives that I was working with are very okay with, getting out of the bed. You're not in the bed all labor. You're moving around. You're using the birthing ball or the yoga ball or whatever you want to call it, and you're trying to move through the pain and try and like get that baby to like settle into the pelvis. I don't know how to describe it. Some of you ladies may know what I'm talking about. So I was just moving a lot, swaying, bouncing, doing a lot of things like that. And it was just a very surreal experience. I kind of wish that I could see myself in that, because I don't even know who that person was almost. It's just like I was just doing it. It was very natural to me. It came natural to me to move that way, and to, I don't know, I was just like I said, my body was just kind of like, mind and body was somewhere else. I was in the zone doing something else. And so labor progressed pretty, I wouldn't say quickly. Actually, no. Like I said, my head, it progressed quickly, but actually I was in labor for a very, 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 very long time. And I mean, I have a very positive feeling about this part of my birth story, because I was happy at that point, you know? It was hard. It was really, really hard, but I wasn't like angry at Michael, or I was just, I don't know how to describe it. I feel so stupid. I'm probably just blabbing on and on, but like, I just have very positive memories when I flash back to that point. It was just like, it was the part of labor that I was totally, I got this, you know? He scratched himself, of course he did. But he's still adorable. Do you remember at what time I started pushing?
I think it was like around 10:30, 11.
Yeah, so I felt like I reached 10 centimeters and was ready to push pretty quickly, but apparently my labor was really long, and the nurses and everything were commending me because I was apparently having a very difficult labor. I honestly don't remember it being that way. I remember, like I said, I was in the zone, and it was just how it was, you know, I was just dealing with what was in front of me. And so, yeah, I started pushing. We tried a lot of different positions, because they, like the bed at our hospital, like you can like do a bunch of different, you can turn it into a bunch of different like positions and stuff, and then there was like a bar that they put on the bed, so I was like sitting up and squatting, and I kind of liked that. Okay, so we had to take a quick little break. He was angry, so I had to feed him, and now he's getting burped, which is okay, plus the camera overheated. But that's okay, because I just realized that I kind of need to back up again a little bit in the story. We were just about to start talking about when I started pushing, but like before that, I was getting concerned about the pain that I was having in my pelvis. I think I've talked to you guys about it on my channel before, but I had like PGP, pelvic girdle pain, or pubis symphysis dysfunction, or whatever it's called, which was really, really painful during my pregnancy. And like I had to sleep in a reclining chair. I could not lay on my side. I couldn't do a lot of things, but that's kind of beside the point. But at this point in labor, he was really coming down into the pelvis, and the pain was concerning me, because the pain for the contractions, that's one thing, and that's something that I was anticipating. This kind of pain was a different kind of pain. It felt like if I was to sit on the side of the bed or something, it felt like I would like break his neck or something. It was really concerning kind of pain. It felt like my bones were breaking or something. Like it was not like normal labor pain as described. And so I had a few minor, not minor, one of them was kind of a bigger freak out, because I felt like nobody was listening to me. Like, I don't know that this pain is a normal pain. It doesn't feel quite right. I can't really describe it, but it was, yeah. And so nobody was really listening to me. They're just like, oh, she's deep in labor. She's in a lot of pain. She's just saying, because I said a couple times, I don't know if I can do it, because it felt like how the hell am I supposed to push him out? My bones are breaking. How am I supposed to push him out? And so anyways, it got to the point where they're like, my midwife was like, it's time to start pushing now. And I was like, I don't know. Because it just, like I said, something didn't feel right. And she's like, it's going to feel better to push, because you're going to be doing something with that pain. A lot of women say that they like it, they like when it's time to start pushing, because then, you know, you're you're using that pain and it's like going for something, you know, like your body is trying to force the baby out. You have that urge to push. I didn't exactly have an urge to push. It was just really, really, really painful deep in my pelvis. And of course, you know, my whole body was dealing with contractions, so that was painful too. But she's like, no, just, you know, it'll feel better to start pushing. And I was like, okay, let's do it then. And so I pushed in several different positions, like I said. I, like, on my hands and knees, like the traditional kind of, but more propped up. I wasn't really laying flat on my back. I squatted on the bar, the bar, and then we tied a sheet to the bar, and then I would kind of pull on the sheet to push. And they kept saying over and over and over again, you're doing really good. You're pushing really, really, really hard. Like, at this point, they had an internal monitor in there because they couldn't get the monitor on my belly to work quite right.
That was an internal.
Was that the second time? Then how did they know the first time how hard I was pushing?
They didn't necessarily know how hard you were pushing.
They were saying that I was pushing really, really hard.
Yeah, you could tell. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you could tell that.
Well, I guess later on is when I had the internal monitor, but the monitor wasn't really staying on my body anyways. It just was not working very well. But there wasn't really a big concern because every time they were checking him, they would check him with the Doppler and stuff periodically, like when I was in the tub and stuff. They would check him, make sure he was doing okay, and his heartbeat seemed fine. He wasn't really in any distress. He did the exact, like when you're at the peak of a contraction, like their heart rate speeds up and stuff, and then it like comes back down. He was doing that. He was doing everything right. He seemed fine. It was me that was kind of freaking out a little bit. And I didn't know yet that there was something like intuitively I felt like there was something wrong, but like I was like looking around and everybody's like, okay, it seems normal because everybody else around me is acting normal, so it must be okay. I pushed for 2.5 hours like that, and they kept checking me, kept checking him, and like just he wasn't moving. Nothing was really happening. Pushing as hard as I possibly could for 2.5 hours. Plus I had been up for a day and a half. 30
hours or so by that
I was up for a really long time. I was exhausted. I mean, I went through labor completely. I was awake the whole time and then pushing it was just, my body was really, really, really tired. And she was like, he's not moving. He looks stuck. He's turned the wrong way. He was sunny side up. And you know, we tried a lot of things. They used like the peanut ball, and we were trying to get him to turn like that, like putting me in different positions and stuff to try and get him to turn, and it just wasn't working. He was not turning. And so then they tried turning him manually. That was right. That wasn't before the second time pushing, was it?
They did it both times.
Yeah, so they tried turning him manually, which I gotta say is probably one of the most painful things in the entire freaking world. So she like put her hand in and tried to move his head while pushing on my stomach like the opposite way, trying to move his body. Cause like sunny side up is pretty much if their spine, baby's spine is closer to your spine. So he was like facing forward
instead of back.
Which because
he's supposed to be facing back.
Supposed to be facing back. That's the easiest way for them to come out. They can come out the other way.
They usually do. It's usually not a problem.
Yeah. It's harder that way, but they usually can. So he was facing the wrong way, but it wasn't like a super big disaster yet. They tried turning him. That didn't really work. And so then they were like, look, you are absolutely exhausted. And I was, and he was really, really, really stuck. I was pushing really, really, really hard, and he was really stuck. And I was in the most intense pain that I can describe. And it wasn't, I gotta be completely honest, contraction pains were practically a breeze compared to how my pelvis was feeling at this point. It was really, really, really bad. And I just felt like nobody really understood that. And now knowing after the fact, after talking to all the doctors and nurses and midwives, everybody was like, no, we haven't really seen that before. You were kind of the exception in that way. So maybe it makes sense that nobody was listening to me. Nobody knew what I was talking about. They just thought that I was in a lot of pain from the regular labor.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
Am I?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying
That's stuff you can talk about later when they understand what actually happened.
Well, that's like stuff that gets them interested to keep watching the whole video, because it's probably going to be a really long video. I apologize. But anyways, my midwife, who I love dearly, she was super, super supportive. She just amazing. I can't even describe really how she was in the same zone that I was in. Like I was saying, I was talking about being in the zone. She was in the zone with me. Nobody else really was. It was just me and her in that zone. And she was just super supportive and amazing. And she was like, this isn't working. You are exhausted. How the hell are you supposed to push this baby out if you're this tired? And it hurts. It hurt so bad. Contraction pain was nothing on this pain. And so eventually we pretty much decided to do the epidural and to rest for a while. And I was sad about that because I felt like I made it so close without it that I was kind of like, you know? But I was like, you know what? I'm exhausted. Let's do it. It's time. And so then it was, he's kind of sleepy. So then it was time for the epidural, and thankfully I was like the first person on the list to get the epidural. There was a couple other people that wanted it.
4 people at that moment who all went in for natural births at the exact same time. Well, actually, I guess 4 epidurals. 3 of them were natural births who at the very last minute decided to do it. Well,
to do the epidural, yeah.
2 chickened out, and then Hannah's situation.
Oh, but that's not the nice way to say it. Labor's hard. Chickening out is not the right way to say that. They changed their minds.
Changed their minds, yes.
But thankfully I was the first person to get it.
And Hannah was like 15 seconds ahead of the next person in the request.
I don't think I could have waited any longer.
It could have been another like 15 to 30 minutes.
I literally at this point was like, my pelvis is going to crack in half and fall out of my body. Like it just was really bad. And so then they get the epidural lady in. I didn't even turn around. I didn't freaking see her face. Michael's like laughing at me. Her name was Corey. I don't remember this woman at all. Like I said, I was in the zone. I don't freaking remember her at all. All I remember is her poking me. And they were like, okay, you have to sit still, because you're supposed to sit on the edge of the bed and be still. As still as you possibly can throughout your contractions.
After having pushed for nearly 3 hours.
Yeah. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So he was like really deep down in there. And so like I said, how sitting on the edge of the bed made me feel like I was gonna break his neck. I'm really surprised he came out with an intact neck, because that's what it was feeling like. They're like, sit on the edge of the bed and stay still. And I also said the way that I was dealing with my contraction pain is by moving through it, swaying or moving my hips or whatever I could do to try and deal with the pain. And they're like, stay still. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I cannot do this. I cannot stay still through this pain. This is ridiculous. And there was like 2 or 3 contractions at least that I was sitting through trying to...
Yeah, it was about 12-15 minutes. They got it in, and they couldn't quite get the epidural all the way through, so they had to pull it back out and take a second shot.
Well, they were doing, like, she got it in, and then she's like, you know, tell me if you feel like a weird twinge on one side or where it is. And so I was like, okay, no, there's a funny feeling on the left side. Okay, now it's on the right. Okay, now it's, you know, and I was like, kept telling her, and she kept adjusting it. She's like, this is not working. And so she pulled it out and tried a whole new spot, and I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I cannot do this anymore. This is ridiculous. Well, finally, they got the epidural in, and it started kicking in, and I don't like how that felt. It wasn't like a relief. It was a really, because I still felt a lot of pressure in my pelvis, like I said, and the pressure's not the right word. It freaking hurt. Like, it still really hurt, like my bones were breaking in my pelvis. But they didn't want to turn the epidural up too high, because they still want to be able to feel the right pressure to know when and how to push. But even the numbness in my legs and stuff, I just really didn't care for it. But anyway, so they were like, okay, you got the epidural, rest for a while. I don't remember how long I rested. I know
about
that
2.5, 3 hours of sleep there.
I didn't sleep all of it though.
Wow.
I was drifting in and out. I remember I was listening to people talk. It was really weird. It was surreal for me to think that, I don't know. At this point I was already in a state of like, wow, this is really weird. This is not how I pictured it would be. And so it was just really weird. I wasn't that upset because I felt that was just what needed to happen then, like maybe I didn't want the epidural originally, but I was like, this needs to happen now because I can't keep going on like this. I can't push the baby out if I feel like my pelvis is cracking in half. But I still felt a lot of that same pressure. It was really, really intense pressure on my cervix, and also really, like I said, my pelvis, just a lot of pressure. So I rested for a while. Everybody kind of rested for a while. I think my mom and sister got some food and stuff, and so everybody just kind of took a little bit of a break. Because before, when I was pushing, like, they were all my support people, my mom, my sister, Michael, everybody was like right there. They said also, like, oh wow, it's been 2.5 hours. They were kind of in the zone at that point too, because it was, yeah. Why don't you share a little bit of your experience with that?
Oh, yeah, it was kind of a surprise. I had looked up the clock after about an hour and 45, 2 hours of pushing, and it did not seem like that. It seemed like it had been like a half hour, maybe 40 minutes, and at that point I was like, wow, it's, this is the long end of when people usually talk about how long they were pushing for, and it just seemed like something was up, so I was kind of relieved to hear about the epidural, to hear that they were going to try something different. Hannah killed it. She knocked it out of the park, but I knew what she had to have been going through. And then, so yeah, they did all that, and she got to sleep, which was really nice. And
I didn't sleep enough, though. I probably if I knew what was ahead of me, I should have slept like 12 more hours.
Well, and then like her parent, or her mom and her sister were telling me like, oh yeah, you gotta eat, you gotta do this, and I was like, I gotta sleep. This isn't, I can survive without food through this. I can, whatever it is, I gotta sleep. So I slept for about 2 hours of that, and then got up and ordered some food. I got some food, which was good. I was glad to have eaten, but it still kind of made me feel a little sick to have eaten at that point, because I hadn't eaten much, but, and then the doctors came in and kind of checked up on Hannah, see what was going, and decided that it was pushing time to start pushing again.
Yeah, at the before we started pushing the second time, Dr. Lessman, she came in, and she was actually the doctor that, because I don't know, I think I talked to you guys about it a little bit, but I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, and so we kind of struggled with infertility for about 1.5 years. And she was actually the doctor that prescribed the Clomid pill that actually ended up getting me pregnant. So, helping me get pregnant, because it makes you ovulate. But anyways, so she was the doctor that actually started the journey, and so she came in, and the midwife was kind of telling her what was up with his position, and he wasn't really turning, wasn't really moving, just kind of giving her a briefing about that, and she's like, okay, well then try again, and we'll see what happens after.
And they were talking about maybe doing forceps or the vacuum at that point to try and get him turned, because at that point he was still head up, and they were going to see what pushing and sitting in certain positions could do and stuff, but eventually you might need to actually go in and physically flip him.
Yeah. And so, and so then it was time to push again. And, I mean, it was a little bit better than the first time, I gotta be honest, because there wasn't the contraction pain, but a lot of the same pelvic pain was still there. I pushed for another 2 hours like that. And at this point, again, they had the internal monitor this time. I said it last time, but this time they had the internal monitor. And so they could, tell how hard I was pushing. It would show up on the monitor how much force I was putting down, and they're like, damn girl, you are pushing really, really hard. I was using every inch of my might to try and push this goddamn baby out. Excuse my language, but I was I was trying so hard, and I don't know if I can really express that quite the way it feels. It was just I don't think that there's anything I could have done to try any harder, to push any harder. And so, we tried more positions. I mean, not quite as many, because, I had the epidural, and so I couldn't really move quite the same, but we still tried a few, pulling on the sheet thing, and, I did lean up on the bar a little bit and stuff like that. And then, he was holding my feet. My mom and him, or Millie, somebody was holding my feet. It changed a lot. I don't remember.
Depending on the position.
Yeah, and so so it was another 2 hours, and I kept thinking in my head, it should be feeling like I'm doing something. Every time I would push, it would hurt really, really, really bad, but I felt like I was pushing up against a brick wall. I felt like it wasn't doing anything. I kind of envisioned my head, like when you're in that pain and you're pushing, that you would feel something, like something coming out, or at least starting to move down or something. I felt nothing. Like I felt like I was pushing into a brick wall, and it just never felt like he was really moving. And so we stopped. The midwife checked me. She was kind of quiet. The doctor came back in and she looked at me, and she, I guess to see if they were going to try and use the forceps or something. And she inspected me, and I was just really, I was so done at that point. And then she pretty much was just like, she's like, I gotta be real with you. If we use forceps or something, there's a chance of injuring him, and it's likely that it's not gonna do a damn thing. He's really, really, really stuck. And this is the part where I might start crying. The whole rest of this story is a little hard for me to talk about, but I love you guys, and I know that you're supportive, and I know that this is therapy for me, because this is the part that, like, I have traumatic, like, I have flashbacks about it sometimes, and it's getting better, don't get me wrong, it's getting a lot better, but, she was like, it's not going anywhere, there's nothing that we can do, you've done everything that you possibly can do, so, we need to do the C-section because he's not coming out vaginally, and, I don't know, every time I tell this story, it's still hard for me, and I really don't know why.
So I just wanted to pop on here really quick, because I totally forgot to mention this in the video, but something that my midwife said to me right before I was going in for the C-section really, really stuck with me, and kind of brings me comfort to think about now. She said, I never give up, and I gave up 2 hours before you did. Well, before the C-section decision was made, that is. So, yeah, I mean, that kind of brings me comfort knowing that I really, really was working really hard, and this amazing midwife who does this for a living, she gave up a long time ago, and I was still trying. So, I don't know, kind of makes me feel like a badass.
Yeah, so pretty much she was like, it's just not going anywhere, we need to do the C-section, and my heart just about shattered into 5 million pieces, because it's like, I knew the whole time that was a possibility, especially after everything that we tried, nothing was changing, and so in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna end up having a C-section, aren't I? And this is in no way, I want to get the disclaimer out there, this is in no way to make anybody that's ever had a C-section feel bad or anything like that. I have nothing against C-sections. It saved my life, it saved my baby's life. I really do love C-sections if you really think about it. But the way that I prepared for birth mentally, I think that I did myself, I didn't do myself any favors in the way that I was thinking about it. Because like I said, I really wanted to do the natural thing, so I was kind of giving myself pep talks, like, you can do it, you can do it. And so, like, in my head, I was, like, determined, like, I am going to do this, And I kind of proved it to myself that I can mentally make myself do anything if I need to,
I mean, she really went through 3 labors in one. Most people stop in the middle of whatever labor they're doing and go to a C-section or whatever it is. And really, she went through one unmedicated birth. She went through one medicated, and then...
And a C-section. So yeah, they were like, we need to do the C-section. And that was just like, it just broke my heart. I think the biggest thing is just trying so hard. And it just didn't matter. It didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter how hard I tried. It just didn't work. And that was really frustrating and made me really mad. And it was just a weird feeling of disappointment and sadness and terror. I was absolutely terrified to get cut open. I didn't do myself any favors. We didn't do ourselves any favors by not really researching a lot. I mean,
That's the biggest thing that I'd say, before any situation, research every option.
We did a lot of research about natural birth, even about epidurals. We took a birthing class, which kind of went over everything. You know, they talked about C-sections also, but I still feel like I felt unprepared. I didn't really know what was gonna happen to me.
I mean, the midwives that we were seeing, their C-section rate is somewhere around 2 to 3%, and when you factor in, you know, how many of those were emergency C-sections and extreme situations and stuff, the odds of them having C-sections, you know, after having normally progressed pregnancies and everything like that, are extremely low. So, you know, by not researching it, we just had assumed that our odds were as low as they actually were, and it shouldn't have happened that way.
And the reality is, and I knew this, people would say this, you know, be prepared for everything and anything. And my birth plan reflected that. I did mention, like, in the event of a C-section, blah, 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 you know, like, I sort of, you know, prepared-ish, but not really. It's like you can be told a million times, you know, be prepared for anything to happen because you never know what's going to happen.
Well, and plus we never discussed with our doctor. You know, she kind of said, you know, I'm glad that you're open to anything, and you never know what's going to happen and stuff, but we never actually sat down and had some of those hard conversations of what happens in these situations. How does this hospital react? How do, you know, what's their procedure? What do we do? Things like that.
Yeah, and that really sucked because there was some big surprises in the operating room, for me at least. So yeah, she told me I had to have the C-section, and then pretty much everything went really, really quick. It was really, really, really sad because before the first time that I started pushing, so this had, you know, hours and hours and hours before this point.
This was pushing about 6 o'clock p.m.
Yeah.
And she had started pushing, what did I say, 9:30? Something like that.
Yeah, so it was a long, long, long time later, but like before I started pushing the first time, they had brought in like the warming table for the baby. They brought in all their supplies and everything, and I started to get excited. Everybody started to get excited, like he's gonna be here soon, you know, and you know, it dragged on and on forever. And then when they said you're gonna have the C-section, they started taking all of that equipment out of the room. And that was just really hard to see. And Michael started getting scrubs on, and that was really, really hard to see. I don't know why it was so hard to see you in scrubs, but I just, like, I couldn't handle seeing you like that.
Bodysuit.
Yeah, whatever you call that. He was just a sea of blue, and then, you know, they got me all prepared. They upped my epidural and stuff. And then they wheeled me out, and my mom and my sister they were so sweet, and they were trying to make me feel better, and like kissing my forehead and trying to make me, you know that it's okay and stuff. And you, of course, were doing that too, but it was kind of weird for, like, my mom and my sister they'd done it the natural way. They did it all the way through, and it was kind of one of those moments, like, if they can do it, why can't I do it? Why isn't it working? I still don't fully understand why it didn't work.
Because he was a giant. He's a monster. Look at him. He's 6 weeks old, and he's huge. He's 90 plus percentile right now, and he was even bigger when he was born.
I don't think that was the
main
main
not bigger
reason
than he
why,
is now, but he was very, very big baby. Well, him being flipped upside down. Well, more on that later.
Yeah. So they started wheeling me away, and we were halfway down the hallway, and I'm like, "Where's Michael?" And then I hear them say, "Oh, Michael, this is where you sit and wait." And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about? He's coming with." And he had to sit out there and wait until I was all ready to go, until they actually, like, were ready to start the surgery, which felt like a million trillion years. And so they wheel me down this, like, I'm just terrified, and just, like, everything is just going so fast, and there's all these nurses that I'm seeing as we're passing, and they, like, all the nurses that had been there, because I'd been through, like 3 different shift changes for the nurses, you know, and so many different people had been in and out of my room.
They were all there at that, because it was 7 o'clock, which the shift changes at 7 o'clock. So all of the old nurses, all of the new nurses, the old midwives, everybody, you know, the midwives that we hadn't, or that we had seen in appointments but not at the hospital and stuff, some of our favorite midwives, they were all
Everybody was there. And that was really comforting. And like, you know, as I was passing by some of those nurses, they were like, I can't believe this is happening. You tried so hard. This shouldn't have happened. I can't believe you're still here. Like, this isn't right, you know? And so that, in a way, it was comforting, but it was also terrifying. Like, well, what's wrong with me? That my birth is so much different than everybody else's. And so I'm in the operating room by myself for what feels like forever. And my midwife's there, and her name is Leanne. And she was, like, right by my head, and she was, like, kissing my forehead because I was so scared. It was just a really emotional, scary time. I was sobbing and heartbroken and scared, and she was right there and talking to me, and she made me feel a lot better. I don't know what I would have done without all of my support people, all the amazing nurses and everything that were there, and just everybody was so amazing. And finally, after like what literally feels like 5 million years, they allow Michael to come in.
It was about 6 minutes. So.
It felt like a really long time.
Believe me, it really felt like the world was ending. But
and
just for reference.
Yeah, and he comes in, and I almost didn't recognize him. All you can see is like his eyes, you know. He's like completely covered up head to toe, and he's crying really, really, really hard. He's sobbing too, and so we're like crying together. And he comes up, and he's like right here, and he's whispering in my ear and trying to, like he was telling me like imagine we're at my favorite lake. And just like picture being there and we're swimming together and picture the mountains, and it was really helpful and comforting, but it was also really scary because I could feel his fear also, you know. And they're like, oh, you know, they were testing to see if I could feel anything, you know. They're like had like a cold like metal something that they like, can you feel it on your face? And I'm like, yes. And then they're like, go down in my body, can you feel that? I really hope I didn't lose any footage because it just stopped recording for a second there, so I'm really hoping we didn't lose anything there. I might have to fill in the gaps later on if we did. But anyway, so they're checking to see if I can feel anything, and I couldn't feel anything that they were saying. And they're like, you're not going to feel any pain, but you're going to feel a lot of pressure. And I was like, okay, so I'm imagining that's like, you know, tugging and pulling and like pressing pressure. That's kind of what I'm imagining I'm going to be feeling. And then they were like, they started the operation, and I was like, no, ow, 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 I'm feeling a lot of pain. And they're like, pain or pressure? And I'm like, it feels like pain. And again, I don't think that they understood. It felt like my bones were breaking. They were pulling on him, pushing and pulling on him.
Well, actually, at that point, the first big one that you had, the really sharp pain, they actually hadn't started anything yet. And apparently if the baby's stuck in the pelvis just right, you can have extreme pain as they ramp up the epidural. And so they were kind of confused by that. But apparently, as I've done some research online and stuff, there's a lot of women who talk about that. Before they even get started, as they're ramping up the epidural, they get like feeling like a knife stabbing them.
That's what it felt like. And like cracking. Like it was not good feelings. And pretty much the entire operation, I was in pain because he was so stuck. He was beyond stuck. Not only did he get stuck, but then I pushed on him for 4.5 hours and got him even more jammed in there, stuck. And he was just really stuck. And so the doctor that was performing the C-section, she was the one that I was telling you about that gave us the Clomid.
Yeah, put him in there, pretty much.
Yeah, she started it and ended it, kind of is how I see it. She's a very tiny woman.
She looks like she's about 12. She's actually over 30, but...
She's amazing, but she was pushing and pull, like I could tell it was a lot. It took a lot. And I kept hearing them, like I heard the doctors and stuff, and at one point she said, he's like, I don't know, he said, really stuck, this isn't working, I'll just cut the bladder and deal with the consequences later. And literally...
I really wish you wouldn't have heard that. I heard it as we were going through it, right at the very last second, and...
I can't believe they said that out loud. Oh my god. I literally, like, went into panic mode at this point, and I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do with a cut bladder and a newborn baby? Like, how do you even deal with that? Thankfully, at that point, like, somebody went to go get something. Like, maybe they were going to get a tool to cut open my bladder. I don't know what they were doing.
There was a lady who was walking across to go and get the scalpel or whatever that she was going to use to... She grabbed it and picked it up and started walking over, and right as she was approaching, Dr. Lessman's like, we got it, he's out. So he actually... Usually they just grab the baby and kind of pull the baby out, sort of like a normal birth would be. Well, that wasn't working. They weren't able to get him up, so they actually had to pull him out by the feet and try and tug on him that way. Well, that wasn't working, so they literally put him back in her body.
And she had her hand up and pushing him back in to try and pull him out of the incision. And I felt a lot of that, guys. I felt a lot of that pressure, and it was very...
Not good.
Not good. It was not good. And I want to reiterate, this is not to scare people, because I learned after the fact that this was a very extraordinary case. This is not normal by any means.
There might be a few of you out there who have had this, and if so, please, share.
I would love to hear your guys' stories.
There should be enough people commenting and viewing this video and stuff that there might be one or two of you out there. So.
But if you're pregnant or, just know that there obviously anything is a possibility, but please don't let this scare you. This is really more of a therapeutic thing for me, just because you guys are my friends and I really value your support. And so that's why I'm sharing this, but please don't get scared. Chances are this would not happen to you.
And I think even given any of the circumstances, I think Hannah would go back and do it the same way. She's frustrated because in the end, it was the worst case scenario. It's the thing she wanted the least, when she wanted the natural birth and stuff like that. But that's not usually how it happens. Almost all natural births go off without a hitch. I don't remember, but in case I didn't say it, just, share your story, start up a conversation, It's pretty intense. She's had a hard time with it, and I know a lot of women out there do too. Fortunately, we didn't end up suffering from postpartum or anything. It was tough in there.
I'm still dealing with, the trauma, like I said, because it was so unexpected and it was so scary. I do have, scary flashbacks and stuff. But, yes, I'm very thankful that I don't have postpartum or anything like that, because the waves of those, scary moments or the big emotional, they come in waves, and the waves are getting farther apart, and they're smaller. So... sometimes there's certain things that trigger me, and then, I have a moment, but...
Such as talking on a video about it. Imagine that.
But my hormones are still going crazy. I'm breastfeeding, and my hormones are just all over the place, and so that's part of it. But that's kind of beside the point, I suppose. Yes, please do share your stories, and I will read every single one of them, and I'm going to try to respond to as many as I possibly can. It's not usually possible for me to respond to everything.
That's how it is with comments on our channel, period. Know that she does see them, she does read them, she tries to respond to them and stuff. They come to her phone, so she gets them, she sees them. It's just, especially lately.
Especially with the new little one, it's been harder, and, but yeah.
She's now figured out how to respond on her phone through the YouTube.
Yeah, I didn't know how to do that before, so now it's easier for me when I'm out and about to maybe respond to one while I'm at the grocery store or something, I can't respond to 5, but I can, respond to 1 or 2 or something, so. But yeah, anyways, he had just come out pretty much, and they had asked me before if they wanted the clear sheet or something, and I didn't really want to see them cutting me open or anything like that, so I wanted them to drop the sheet when he came out so I could see him. The bad thing about that, though, is that they dropped the sheet and I couldn't lift my head. I don't know if it was just because I was so numb, or just exhausted, or the combination, but I could not lift my head. I could barely see him, and then there was some guy in the way. I just barely saw the tiniest flash of them holding this, I couldn't even see his face, it was just a big ball of, mucusy baby or something. That sounds really gross, but it didn't look like I couldn't see anything worth seeing, you know? And then they quickly moved him over to the table, and he was there for what felt like 5 million years. When my original birth plan, I wanted him to come out and straight to my chest. And I told them, my midwife knew, everybody knew, that I wanted, which by the way, I don't know if we mentioned, but my midwife is in the room as well as another one of my favorite midwives. They're trained to be in the room and assist with the C-section. So
as well as quite a few of the nurses that
Yeah.
went through the experience with us.
But yeah, my midwife knew, everybody knew that I wanted him as soon as possible, and I don't know if the nurse that was like cleaning him up was just really slow or if it was just me. I wanted him first.
All they did was pull the crud out of his nose and throat and lungs as much as they could and weigh and size him. And it was about, I think, 7 or 8 minutes or so.
But it was like a million years, and my midwife was taking pictures for us, which I'm so thankful that she did, because I can remember things better now that I see them. But sometimes Michael, because he went with him to the table to get clean and everything, and he'll say something like what did you say the other day? Like he picked his nose. He said that he picked his nose on the table. Hey buddy, come here. Shh, shh, shh. That like he picked his nose on the table, and I started crying because I didn't see that. I don't have that memory. I don't have a memory of like the first minutes of after his birth, and that makes me really sad. I was so doped up and so tired and so freaked out that so much of my birth experience is a blur, and that makes me very, very sad. That's why I talk to you about it a lot. He remembers more than I do, and I want to have those memories. I want to feel like I was there, and sometimes it feels like I wasn't there, like it was a totally out of body weird experience, you know? And so that's really frustrating for me. But yeah, so he was on the table for what felt like a million years. They finally bring him over to me, and I can't feel him. Like I pull my hand up to try and touch him. And sorry guys, he's a little fussy right now. He's reaching a fussy period of life, that 6 to 8 week fussy time. He's getting there. But anyways, I reach my hand up to touch his face, and like I can't feel anything. Like I can't feel him, and I just started like crying. I couldn't feel him. I was trying to kiss him and trying to be with him, and I couldn't lift my head, so I could hardly see him. I can't feel him. Everybody's like, you know, rushing around me, stitching me up to get back up together and everything, and it was just crazy and chaotic, and it was a blur. And then before you know it, I'm being wheeled down the hallway again. And I guess I was holding him, but I don't remember him being in my arms. Maybe because I couldn't feel him. I had enough muscle control to be able to hold him and move my arms and stuff, but I couldn't feel, and it was just really, really upsetting. Yeah. And so then I went down to like a recovery area. And then at this point, I mean, I'm so out of it, guys. I'm so out of it. Everything's blurry, and I'm dizzy, and I can hardly keep my eyes open. It's just kind of really, like, upsetting, I guess, to remember. The only memories I have of that time is just being out of it and not... I mean, everybody else was holding him at this point, you know? Like, my mom and my sister got to hold him, and that was amazing, and Michael was spending time with him, and that was, like, that was great. But, you know, in my original plan, he was, you know, baby was supposed to be up on my chest. I wasn't supposed to be that doped up or anything, and I was supposed to, like, I wanted to try breastfeeding as soon as possible. Like, I wanted him to be on my chest, skin to skin, right away. And that just was not the way it happened for me. And that was just a hard thing for me to overcome mentally, and just like, you know, I mean, obviously it ended up being just fine. I bonded with him perfectly. Everything ended up being fine, but it's still upsetting to think that, you know, I wasn't there, and I was kind of mentally somewhere else, like physically just somewhere else. Everybody else was holding him at this point, and just, it was just weird. And then finally we got taken to, they call it the mother baby unit, and so that's where I was going to spend like the rest of our time in the hospital, was in this room. And it was just really weird. It didn't even feel like I had a baby. Like, even now sometimes when I talk about, my birth story, birth is what, like, in my head, you have this image of, like, birth. And he didn't come out that way, and it didn't happen that way. And so sometimes, I can know logically I gave birth, but, like, sometimes emotionally is it still birth if it happened the other way? If somebody else pulled him out of me, is it still birth, And it's, like I said, logically you can know that. And I get so mad at myself because if any other woman was telling me this story, never in a million years would I judge her the way that I seem to judge myself about this, And I don't know why I'm having this hard time, like, accepting. I don't really know. I don't know how to explain it. Michael tells me all the time he's been an amazing support, and he's constantly telling me, you knocked it out of the park. You did an amazing job. You went all the way without that last, like, inch, you know what I mean? Like, I did the whole thing. He just didn't end up coming out that way. I pushed him out without him coming out, Like, I guess you kind of know what I'm talking about, I think. But for some reason, just mentally, it's just one of those things. It's just not easy for me to accept, apparently. But every day it gets a little easier, and I am beyond thankful for the amazing baby that I have. He's such a special little person that I can't even describe how special you are, buddy. And I hope that, I want to put him in more videos. I want you guys to see him more. Maybe if we get a chance to vlog some more, I want to do that also.
I definitely want to.
If we get a better camera.
That we haven't at this point.
Yeah.
If we get a better camera. A better camera that's easy to vlog with.
Yeah, this camera is not easy to vlog with. We need an easier, maybe I'll start vlogging on my phone. That might be an easier way to do it.
It's a better quality camera than the camera you have.
Yeah. Is there anything else about the birth story that we're forgetting? Recovery. Oh my god. This part I do remember if you want to take him out.
Yeah.
Okay, so Michael had to take Everett out of the room. He was getting too fussy. So I'm just going to finish up like the recovery and everything. I apologize. I know that this video is probably way too long. If you stuck it out this long, thank you so much. You guys are amazing. I love you. Geez, I hear him crying out there. He's fine though. Don't worry. He's just, like I said, he's reaching that fussy period. So yeah, we brought into the mother-baby unit. I would say that the most frustrating thing in the entire world about having a C-section is feeling like you can't physically take care of your baby. And that was my biggest fear about having a C-section is, how am I supposed to get up and move and take care of my baby the way that I want to if I can't move? I can't really get up and move. Now, don't get me wrong, you can, and they want you to get up and move as soon as you can. And pain wasn't necessarily the biggest problem for me. It wasn't pain that was keeping me down. Like I said, when we first got to the mother-baby unit, I had a catheter and everything, for peeing and stuff, because it's not easy to get up and go to the bathroom. And so it was really, really frustrating having that catheter because you can't walk around with that. You can't, we sort of walked around with it, but it's really difficult to walk around, like, carrying a bag of your pee. No, I know that's kind of graphic, but for reals, it was like I would have to, like, carry around a bag of pee with me so that I could, like, get up and, like, walk with my baby. And yeah, that, like I said, that was just the most frustrating thing. They had me on, like, I can't remember what they give me in the hospital for pain. It was a pill, though it wasn't an IV or anything. Oh, I should have mentioned before, I completely forgot. I was Strep B positive, so I did need, like, periodically during my labor, they gave me, oh my god, what's that antibiotic called? Penicillin. They gave me penicillin, like, for like 15 minutes every 4 hours or something like that. So I had a lot of freaking penicillin. I just thought I should mention that in case anybody was curious about that. Yeah, I had a lot of freaking IV fluids throughout that time. And then, the epidural, you're hooked up to fluid during that whole time. And I did end up, I also forgot to mention earlier, when the second time that I started pushing after they gave me the epidural, they did give me Pitocin to try and get my contractions to go faster. Oh my gosh, and I forgot something else. See, I apologize, guys. There's so many things that I completely forgot. And Michael forgot too. One thing that I do want to know from you guys, if you've experienced anything like this, because my midwife seemed to not, she was like, this is weird, this is not normal. My contractions were hella painful, and I was dilated to, 10, and, I should be able to push that baby out. But my contractions would never get closer than about 4 minutes, like 4 or 5 minutes. Like, that's where they hovered. They never got closer than that, which is very, very frustrating when you're trying to push out the baby, because you have to wait for forever in between. Like, it was just, yeah. So I wanted to know if anybody else had a similar experience. Like, the intensity of my contractions were, I think that they were on point. I mean, they hurt. They hurt really bad, and I was pushing, like, the intensity of my pushing was enough, but just the consistency of my contractions were not getting close enough. So yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why it took so long, why I was pushing for so long, but still, it was a really freaking long time to be pushing. But I thought I should mention that because I am curious, did anybody else have an experience where their contractions kind of just didn't get that close together? But yeah, we were talking about recovery. In terms of my incision, they gave me glue instead of like stitches or staples or anything like that, and I'm very thankful for that. And I would say that it took about 2 weeks or so until the glue really started flaking off and coming off. And they had told me at my 2-week postpartum visit that the glue wasn't really doing anything at that point, so if I wanted to like pick the rest of it off, I could, because my incision had closed pretty well on its own. It seemed like my body was healing very well. There was definitely, in a lot of ways, I had to recover from both types of births, Alright, sorry, my camera overheated again. This video is taking forever. Like I was kind of saying, I kind of went through like both recoveries, the recovery from a vaginal birth as well as the recovery from a C-section. Now, although he didn't come all the way out and I didn't have any tearing on the outside or anything, I'm pretty sure that some stuff happened up there. I was very, very sore. There was a lot of soreness. But at the same time, that was kind of a cakewalk compared to, like, the pain wasn't that bad. The recovery pain isn't that bad. It was more the learning how to use my body again. I mean, not only was I kind of like, I was just giant. I was just, 9.5 months pregnant and giant. And then now all of a sudden I, lost all of that. And, your body changes, the way you walk changes, all of that changes. But, my milk was coming in and my boobs were extremely heavy and sore. I had a lot of swelling in my legs and ankles from all of the fluid that they were pumping me through. I didn't have any swelling in my ankles my entire pregnancy. Then the day after I give birth, my ankles puff up like 3 times their normal size. And so it was just things like that. And then recovering in a hospital where like the labor and delivery nurses were absolutely amazing and so supportive and so sweet. And some of the nurses in the mother baby unit just weren't. They just weren't. Like, we were having some issues with breastfeeding. I want to make a whole kind of separate video about the issues that I've been having with breastfeeding from all the way at the beginning. But we were having some issues, like, obviously for the first 3 days, you don't have any real milk. And that's really frustrating for you, really frustrating for your baby, because all you have is colostrum. And although that stuff is really nutritious, it's very small in amount. And so trying to get that out was just really, really frustrating. That's a whole separate issue, but that was frustrating. And then nurses like pressuring, there was a couple nurses that were not very supportive and very pressuring me to like give him formula and stuff like that. and there was just not a lot of support. And then on top of that, it took forever for them to take my catheter out. I swear, I would ask them all the time, can I get my catheter out already? Can I get my catheter out? Can I get my IV out? Like, why am I hooked up to all this crap right now? Like, I want to get up and move. And I was getting up and moving pretty well, and my doctor was commending me, like, wow, you're doing really good. You're recovering very well. But it was still very frustrating, like I said, to feel like I couldn't fully take care of my baby the way I wanted to. I couldn't really get up and walk with him the way that I wanted to. So that was frustrating. But at the same time, I need to make it clear to you guys that I am incredibly lucky and very thankful for, I have a happy, healthy baby. He's healthy. Like, that's all that I can ask for, I'm alive. Like, I was thinking, back in the day, when there weren't such things as C-sections and stuff, me and him would have both died in that. Like, he was not going to come out vaginally. He was very, very, very stuck. Both me and him would have died trying to get him out. So it's terrifying to think that, and so I am very thankful for medical science. I am very thankful for the fact that my C-section saved my life, my doctor saved my life. And so, don't get me wrong, I feel very appreciative because I have a healthy baby, and that's really all that matters. But, our emotions matter also, and so talking through this stuff and, recognizing what's painful and dealing with that is also very important. So, yeah, maybe we can commiserate together in the comments, guys. There's probably a million things that I'm not remembering to tell you right now. And probably a million things that I'll think of, like, the second I turn the camera off. And maybe while I'm editing, I'll remember some stuff. Maybe you'll have seen some, like, little annotations pop up here and there. And I hope so, because I know that this story got some holes in it, because it's just such an intense, it's an intense memory. But yeah, we all need to, as women, I really feel like we need to give ourselves credit where credit is due. And I am trying my best every single day to remind myself that I kicked ass and that I did everything that I possibly could. And that's hard for me to accept for some reason. I always want to minimize it in my head, and that's not okay. I really do need to not minimize it. I need to take it for what it was, which was I tried really hard. I did everything that I could, and I experienced pretty much all three versions of birth. And that's something that not a lot of people can say. So, yeah. Oh, I do want to mention, I had several doctors, because, like I said, the shift changes and stuff. And so I had 3 doctors, 3 midwives, and just about every single nurse that was in and out of my room, which was a lot, tell me, one nurse she said, in my 30 years of being a labor and delivery nurse, I'd never seen anybody with a more difficult labor, with a more unusual situation. Because not only did I have a really difficult, long, natural labor, but I also had a C-section, and that's just not, from what they were telling me, that's not the case with most of the women that they see in and out of that labor and delivery unit. It doesn't happen that way. Usually people that try as hard as me, or that go through that much of a natural labor, end up succeeding at their goal. And yeah, and then I had one thing that I want to know, if there is anybody that has a similar situation to me, let me know about VBACs or vaginal delivery post C-section, because I had actually my doctor in the operating room. She told me, I don't know why she thought it was a good idea to tell me in the operating room right after surgery, right when I'm trying to like bond with my baby. She told me, you did a really good job, good job, but you're not a good candidate for a VBAC. You're not a good candidate. I don't know what that means. I really don't understand. I had both midwives tell me this also. They were like, you're not a good candidate for a VBAC. I guess my pelvis is a funny shape or something. I kind of feel like calling my midwife and like talking to her about it a little bit, because I don't really understand why. They never really fully explained to me why I wouldn't be a good candidate for a VBAC. And in a lot of ways, that's one of the most painful things for me to think about and remember, that I will always have C-sections, is kind of what they were telling me. And I plan on having more children. And so to think that I'm only ever going to have C-sections is a very upsetting thought to me. I don't know. And that's a to be continued, because I still have to figure it out. I gotta ask my doctor what the hell she means about that, and maybe even get like an x-ray or something, get a second opinion. I guess I've had several opinions, several midwives and everything, and the doctor said it, but I don't know. I mean, I guess I had all things working against me. Apparently I have a weird shaped pelvis. He was turned the wrong way. He got stuck. Like, just everything was just turned against me. So, yeah. But I am very happy right now, and I want that to be clear. I am very, very, very happy and very lucky, and I love my son more than I could have ever imagined that I could love him. I loved him before he was born, but I never expected I could love him this much. So, yeah. Now I'm finally going to end this video. I apologize so much that this is so long. Thank you so much for watching, and please share your stories down below. I would love, love, love to hear other people's experiences, because us women got to stick together. Yeah. Alright, I'm just gonna wrap this up. I'm sorry again. I love you guys so, so, so much. I can't wait to talk to you guys in the comments, and look forward to more videos, because I'm really trying to get back into it. So, yeah. I love you guys so, 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 so much, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hello, 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 hello. Aren't you just the sweetest little boy?
Kitty face!